under the Obama administration is aggressive, centralized government at home and isolationism abroad. It's the worst of all worlds. Eli Lake over at Bloomberg, U.S. saw Islamic State coming, let it take Rahmadi. I want you to think about this. I want you to think about how many of our young men and our young women died taking this city. The U.S. watched Islamic State fighters, vehicles, and heavy equipment gather on the outskirts of Rahmadi before the group retook the city in mid-May. But the U.S. did not order airstrikes against the convoys before the battle started. It left the fighting to Iraqi troops, who ultimately abandoned their positions. Now, I thought we were told by the propagandists, by the demagogues, by the flat-out serial liars in this administration and their surrogates, that we couldn't use air power because of the sandstorm. There was a sandstorm. And I was thinking, how is it that the enemy can benefit from sandstorms, but we can't benefit by whacking the enemy during sandstorms? There were sandstorms in Gulf War I, Gulf War II, and we used them to our benefit because of our technological advantages. But apparently the throwbacks, the barbarians, the Islamonazis, are more effective in sandstorms than we are. Now that was always nonsense. Let's go on. Eli Lake says U.S. intelligence and military officials told me recently, on the condition of anonymity, that the U.S. had significant intelligence about the pending Islamic State offensive in Rahmadi, and for the U.S. military it was an open secret even at the time. The Islamic State, a.k.a. Islamonazis, my phrase, have been contesting territory in and around Rahmadi for more than a year, and had spoken of the importance of recapturing the city. The U.S. intelligence community had good warning that they intended a new and bolder offensive on Rahmadi because it was able to identify the convoys of heavy artillery, vehicle bombs, and reinforcements through overhead imagery and eavesdropping on chatter from local Islamic State commanders. It surprised no one, one U.S. intelligence official told me. This is what I've been wondering. These aren't the Amazon men. They're not 10 feet tall. We can't intercept their communications. We can't see what they're doing. We have satellites, all kinds of technology. We don't know when they're getting ready to attack a major city in Iraq. Of course we do. And of course we did. We knew everything. And we did nothing. Other observers were willing to speak on the record about how many had seen the Islamic State assault on Rahmadi coming. Quote, the operations in Rahmadi had been ongoing for 16 months, said Derek Harvey, a former intelligence advisor to David Petraeus when he commanded the counterinsurgency strategy in Iraq. He said many observers had seen the Islamic State's series of probing attacks and psychological operations aimed at the Iraqi army and local tribes. Quote, everyone knew that Rahmadi for some reason was a major focus, and he conceded that he did not know the exact timing of the Rahmadi offensive beforehand. He acknowledged he was surprised at how effective the operations were. Effective. We own the airspace. We own it. They don't have a single jet fighter. They don't have a single bomber. They don't have a single reconnaissance plane. They don't have any satellites. They have nothing. The Institute for the Study of War, a Washington think tank, has also been warning in policy papers that the Islamic State had set its eyes on Rahmadi. Kim Kagan, the think tank's president, told me her institute, quote, assessed that ISIS would undertake tactical offenses in different areas of Iraq in April and May in order to disperse the Iraqi security forces and prevent them from consolidating their gains after the fall of Tikrit. She said ISIS began alternating attacks between Anbar and the Baji oil refiner in mid-April, which prompted General Martin Dempsey, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, to say in congressional testimony that the U.S. was prioritizing the defense of Baji over Rahmadi. Kagan said the Islamic State's attack on Rahmadi was not a strategic surprise. So they've seen this coming for almost a year and a half. A spokeswoman for the U.S. Command, Central Command, declined to discuss any specific intelligence. But she did say the U.S.-led coalition provided both airstrikes and surveillance to the Iraqi security forces. The U.S. also flew airstrikes in the past against Islamic State forces in Rahmadi. So what? Not enough. Not in any consequential way. Conducting air operations in heavily populated areas where ISIL hides can present challenges, she said, through our dynamic targeting process. It's very dynamic. It's dynamic for the enemy, apparently. We carefully consider each target. You know, I can just see Obama sitting there. Okay, hit that. Don't hit that. hit that, don't hit. Can't you see this? So they want to minimize civilian casualties by not doing what's necessary to end the genocide. This is what amazes me. This whole line of thinking. We're going to minimize civilian casualties by not doing serious bombing raids, as I've been pressing for, when it's the civilians who are being slaughtered by the enemy. The restricted rules of engagement for U.S. aircraft were explored this week in a devastating New York Slimes article that found there are an average 15 airstrikes per day in Syria and Iraq in the war, compared to 800 each day in Iraq in 2003. And McCain, the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, said last week, only 1 in 4 air missions actually result in airstrikes. If the administration is only going to use airstrikes, they're going to have to expand what constitute a target, says Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intel. And it goes on. It wasn't a sandstorm that stopped us from blowing the enemy off the face of the earth before it took Rahmadi. It was Barack Obama. Barack Obama stopped it. Now, in addition to the genocide that's going on in the Middle East and in North Africa, other enemies see this. The Red Chinese see this. And they're going to say, if he won't take on the Islamo-Nazi barbarian subhuman cockroaches, of which there are, what, 20, 30, tops, 35,000 of them? Well, he's not going to take on the Chinese Navy. He's not going to take on the Chinese Air Force. He's not going to deal with a country of over 1 billion people, closer to 1.5 billion people, and who can actually shoot missiles back. If he's not going to take on the cockroaches in the Middle East, given what they're doing, if he's going to withhold his military might from wiping them out, well, she sure as hell isn't going to be engaged with the Chinese military, is he? And, of course, the fascist killer and billionaire now, Vladimir Putin, hero to some in the United States, Vladimir Putin sees the same thing. We're now reading reports that, in fact, there are strong numbers of Russian soldiers in eastern Ukraine helping the separatists. And as they die, these Russian soldiers, Putin's put in portable, mobile crematoria to eliminate, so nobody even knows they've been there. They're just killed. I mean, once they're killed, they're just cremated. And in our own hemisphere, Venezuela continues to imprison opposition leaders. The Castros continue with their gulags. Bolivia's gone. El Salvador's almost gone. Argentina's gone. Brazil's a problem. I can go on and on. Nicaragua. We're losing ground everywhere. For the extremist libertarians, which are mostly leftists, but some of whom have bled into the Republican Party and claim to be conservatives, your practices are already in place. America has disengaged. America is an isolationist nation. And the last time we did this, World War II broke out. And the time we did it before that, World War I broke out. And as I've been saying for months and months and months, we're in the middle of World War III. We're just not engaged yet, but unfortunately we will be. And we're going to have multiple enemies, multiple powerful enemies, with different strengths and different weaknesses in different regions of the world. And the next president of the United States is going to have to significantly beef up the United States military, increase the numbers of military personnel by a large number. And if people don't volunteer to join the military, I predict here and now that within the next decade, we're going to have a massive draft, because Obama is sowing the seeds of a massive war. He'll be long gone. He and his lovely wife will be on the talk circuit like Bill Clinton and his lovely wife, packing in tens of millions of dollars in their pockets, shoving it in hand over fist while complaining about America, while complaining about inequality and capitalism, while living among the wealthy, while golfing among the wealthy, while traveling to wealthy places. Their hypocrisy will continue, but they will be well off as their daughters and the rest of their family. But I'm telling you now, this man Obama is sowing the seeds for a massive world war. And I believe that world war has already begun. And I believe when the history books are written, it will tell us it already began. But America is in an isolationist state right now. Few bombings here and there. John Kerry running around like a chicken without his head with those botched facelifts and all the rest of it. That doesn't change a damn thing. We're not even engaged in our own hemisphere. We're not even engaged south of the border. Absolutely distressing.